It's it's so sad. I'm going down the blocks, and my Zucker isn't around, and now Yisrael Ganuth and David Sabo. I mean, it's like, yeah. Anyway.
How he calls his girls today.
We need to find Eliza Shidduch. She's a terrific gal.
Yeah.
Terrific gal. Anyway, okay, so we are dedicated by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam bas Gad Yosef ben Simon Yaakov Zev Lefu Shalem for Moshe ben Miriam, for a great shidduch for Chai Tzivya bas Shoshana Gittel, a great shidduch for Batya Basar, dedicated by Baruch Ian Lila Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba Esther bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKayin Lefu Shalem for Liba bas Anya, and we want a great shidduch for Batya Basara, and for a healthy mommy, healthy baby for Liar Sar and Ariel. Bas Elza Rivka. There he is, Eddie. I was wondering when he was going to jump out of the helicopter. Okay. We are holding, I have a warning to you, everybody, that, Barchian, are you in North Carolina? South Carolina. What part of South Carolina? Now I know what the trip is like.
Can I add a name?
Yeah.
Chaim Rafal Ben Sarah.
Chaim Rafal Ben Sarah, Pinchas Menachem Ben Leah. You should have a refuah shalema b'seich she'achel Yisrael.
Mordechai Tzvi Ben Rus.
Mordechai Tzvi Ben Rus. Rus Chana should have a refuah shalema b'seich she'achel Yisrael. Now, so we're holding 3 lines from the top of Tzadik Gimel Amud Aleph. HaYoresh Soimech. A Yoresh, one who inherits, so let's say Yitzchak inherited a carbon from his father, so he brings the carbon and he does smicha. And he can affect an illegal tmura. Tani Rav Chananya Kamei de Rav, Yoresh Einoi Soimech, Yoresh Einoi Meimar. He says, Mamish, not like the Mishnah, that a Yerush can't be Saimech and a Yerush can't affect a Tumur. Now you have to know, Rab Chananya was an Amoira. An Amoira will never argue on a Tana. So the Gemara says, how could you say that? V'anan Tanana Yerush Saimech umevi nechsachav. The Yerush does smicha, he brings the accompanying libation, umeimer, and he could affect an illegal Tmura. Amalei, so Reb Chananya said to Rava, Ipchai, should I switch around my teaching? Amalei lai, no. There's actually a machlokes tanaim. This must be according to the other Tana. Masnisan mani Reb Yehudahi. The Brisa, I'm a little surprised over here that it says Masnisan. It really should say Masnisa, because it's a Brisa. Let's see if there's a correction over here. No. Yeah, no, that's just taking out the money. No, I was wondering about that, because Masnisan is not accurate for a Raisa. So anyway, says the Gemara, Masnisan mani Rabbi Yehudi, the Tanya, Yoresh Soimech Yoresh Meimer, like our Mishnah. Yerush does smicha, Yerush could affect Tamura. Rabbi Yehuda Imer, Yerush Einai Saimech, Yerush can't do smicha, Yerush Einai Meimer. So the Gemara says, my time at Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda that a Yerush cannot do it? Because it says carbonai. You only do smicha on your own carbon. The loy carbon of it, but not on the carbon of your father. Now, that's the din, excuse me. That's the din of smicha. Now, smicha is considered soif hektish, because that's done at the end when it's ready to be slaughtered. Tmura is considered tchilas hektish, because that's passing kedusha onto the animal. And the Gemara says, "V'yolef tchilas hektish mesayf hektish." He learns out tmura, which is tchilas hektish, initial hektish, from smicha, which is at the end of the process. Just like masayf hektish yorish ain't a saimach, the yorish can't do smicha. Af tchilas hektish, the yorish can't be meimer. Yorish ain't a meimer. The Rabbanan, they say differently. Rabbanan, they say by tmura, it says a double lashon. Rabbanan homer yomer. Now it just could have said homer, or it just could have said yomer. Why the double lashon? Homer yomer l'rabbi says a yirish. That comes to include the yirish that he could do tmura on his father's sacrifice, and that is tchilas hektish. And we learn out soif hektish smicha from tchilas hektish. V'yolef soif hektish metchilas hektish, matchilas hektish by tmura yorish meimer. Af soif hektish yorish soimech yorish could do smicha. The Rabbanan who say that he could do smicha, what did they do with karbanai? Right? Rabbi Yehuda learns out from karbanai v'loi karbanai. What does Rabbanan do with karbanai? Hi karbanai my avdalei. Karbanai v'loi karbanai v'lei chachavim. Karbanai are not the carbon of a guy. Karbanai v'loi karban chavera. You can't do smicha as a shliach. Karbanai l'rabbas kol balei karban l'smicha. That if 5 people bring a carbon together, each one of them has to do it. Now Rabbi Yehuda, who uses one karbanai to tell me karbanai v'loi karban aviv, so then he's going to be short a drasha. Rabbi Yehuda l'rabbas kol balei karban l'smicha leslei. He doesn't hold that everyone has to do smicha. He holds that if Michal, Avram, Berish, and Chaim bring a carbon together, only one of them has to do smicha. Or V'inami islay, or maybe he does hold that way, but Oive kechavim v'chaveiroi mechad kronafka. He learns out karbanai, only your carbon, not the carbon of a guy, or not the carbon of somebody else. That's all from one pasuk. Not the carbon of a guy. Guy is someone else, and another person is someone else. So he learns that out from it. So yatu trey cry. He has it extra. Chad karbanai v'loy karban aviv. One is to tell you his carbon and not the carbon of his father. V'idach l'ravas kol barli carbon l'smicha, that Itaka holds that all the members that bring it have to do smicha. But there's one dotting of the I and the crossing of the T's that we didn't do. I think I remember hearing a story that the New York Times maybe decided to stop dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And they made a cheshbon that they saved over $1 million in ink by doing that. So we're not the New York Times.
How do they make a T?
I don't know.
The I
I will proudly say that the New York Times does not grace my home. Unless it's the lining in the garbage can, which I don't know about. But other than that, that anti-Semitic trash does not grace my home. Says the Gemara, you know what, Ruvain, if there's a half a cup of apple juice in the refrigerator, if not a half of a cup of water.
Time to count Safira.
It's orange juice.
He said they
I can't have oranges.
Huh?
I can't have oranges.
So if there's no apple juice water?
Yeah. Anyway, so what does Rabbi Yehuda do with Homer Yomer? Now, when we're desperate, we say that sometimes the Torah repeats things, Dibber Torah Koloshim Adam, that the Torah speaks in the common vernacular. However, the Gemara doesn't need to say that over here. The Gemara says something concrete that Rabbi Yehuda does with Homer Yomer. Rabbi Yehuda, hi Homer Yomer, my Avidlei. Why does it repeat Homer Yomer? Mibayilei l'Rabbi says Isha. It includes that a woman could also affect an exchange. Why would I think not? The Tanya fi shekol ha'inyan kulai. Since the whole parsha of Tamura. Eina medaber ela b'lashain zachar only speaks in the masculine. Maso feinu l'rabbi says so isha. How do we know to include a woman? Now, Taisus takes issue with this because Taisus says the whole Torah is dibur Torah b'lashon zachar. And we don't have all over the place that we have to include a woman because the whole parasha is masculine. The whole Torah is written in the masculine. But Taisus says that perhaps over here, since we already excluded that you can't make a shliach, and we already excluded carbon chaverai, so maybe we exclude a woman too. Kamash Malon, we don't. How do Rabbanan know a woman? Rabbanan Darshay Mivim, the extra vav. Rabbi Yehuda V'im Loi Darish, he doesn't darish in the extra vav. So we covered all the bases.
I guess she's not married then, this woman. Otherwise she has no violence.
Or somebody gave her money, and now we are grateful to welcome Dr. Guy. Welcome back, Dr. Guy, and Marshall Castle, and Saba, and Mel Zachter, and Yisrael Fisher, Shalom Fogel, Irving Fishbaum, Nachman Chapler, Yaakov Warman, Barry Cement Barry. You were very missed. Very, very missed. Ruvain Pollack, Michal. I said to them, I'd trade 3 marshals and an Eddie for you, but nobody was interested. And 1 player to be named later.
Could be a Frankel.
Thank you very much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro. So now, Michael, Rabbi Kranz, Dr. Block, Eddie Chazan, Gabriel Epstein, Shelley Zeitlin, Mark Frankel, Baruch Ian, Moshe Lehman, Naftali Jablin, Avram Rezepkowitz, Shimon Klein, Daniel Rosenberg, Abe Arbach, Ilya Shutman, so now, new Mishnah on Daf Tzadik Gimel Amud Aleph, Hakol Samchin. Everyone does the ritual of smicha, which is leaning with your 2 hands, all your might between the horns of the animal and confessing. Everybody does that, chutz mecheres shayta v'katan, except for a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a minor that are not b'nei das. A summa, a blind person. We're going to talk about why a blind person should be excluded. V'eved kechavim, a Gentile. V'eved, this refers to an eved Kanani, a Canaanite slave. V'ashliach, an agent. If an agent brings somebody's carbon, he can't do smicha on behalf of the person. V'isha, a woman doesn't do smicha. Usmicha shiorei mitzvah. Smicha is only a remnant of the mitzvah. In other words, it is not indispensable. It is not a ma'akev. If you don't do it, you still fulfill the requirement of the carbon. It's done al reish, upon the head of the animal, b'beis yadayim, with 2 hands, u'b'makom shesamchim sheichtim. In the place they do the smicha, right there they do the shchita, v'teikef l'smicha shchita. Immediately after the smicha, they do the shchita. Now this is redundant, because if it says immediately after you do the smicha, the shchita, obviously you do it in the same place. So the Gemara will say this is time amai. Why in the place of the smicha do you do the shchita? Because immediately after the smicha you have to do the shchita. So now we're going to see why all these aforementioned people do not do smicha. The deaf mute, the imbecile and the minor, the labnei dayanin. They are not people of intellect. The guy, well, it says in the parsha, Bnei Yisrael. And therefore, Bnei Yisrael say, only a Jew does smicha. My time alike, but why should a blind person be excluded? Says the Gemara, two reasons. Rav Chisda, Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. One reason given by Rav Chisda. One reason given by Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. We're not sure which one to attribute to who. Chad Amar Asya Smicha Smicha Meziknei Eda. We learn out Smicha from the Zekanim that did the Smicha by the Parhelim Dover Shel Tzibur, by the bull that was brought for an erroneous decision made for the community. Now, the judges on the court had to be seeing. And therefore, just like there, when it says smicha, it's seeing people. So here also, smicha is only seeing people. It says that we come up to see Hashem, right? It says, Lo v'lo yeira'eh fanai rekum. You shouldn't see me empty-handed. So that means that they're seeing people. So we learn out smicha from Ayos Re'iyah. Says the Gemara, so why doesn't each one learn it out from the place of the other one? Why doesn't he learn out from the Ziknei Eda? Done in Yachid mi Yachid. You learn out an individual from an individual. So regular smicha done on an individual carbon, we learn out from the Ayos Re'iyah, which is an individual carbon. Vein done in Yachid B'Tzibur. We don't learn out an individual from the community from the Parhelim Dover Shel Tzibur, the bull brought by the court. Because by Ayos Re'iyah it doesn't say the word smicha there. Done in midei d'chsiv bei smicha begufei, by it itself. You see, Ayos Re'iyah, it doesn't say smicha. We learn out Ayos Re'iyah from an Ayos Nedava. So we'd rather learn out from Ziknei Eda, where it says smicha there by the Parsha itself. We learn it out Memidei d'chsiv bei smicha begufa, Memidei d'chsiv bei smicha begufei. By Ziknei Eda, it says smicha in the Parsha. La'afuke Ayos Re'iyah, that it doesn't say smicha by it, but rather it's learned out from Ayos Nedava. The Gufa me Ayos Nedava Gamra. How do we know that? The Tani Kamed Rav Yitzchak bar Abba, Vayakre Vesa Ayla, they offered the Ayla Vayaser Kamishpat. What does it mean that they did it Kamishpat? That they did the Ayos Re'iyah Kamishpat? Kamishpat Ayos Nedava. Limit al Aylos Chayva, that the Ayla of Re'iyah, the obligatory Ayla, when you come up 3 times a year to the Beis HaMikdash, Shetuna Smicha. Now, V'eved v'ashliach v'isha. An Eved Kanani, an agent, and a woman don't do smicha. Tan Rabbanan, it says 3 times Yadai. Yadai, his hand, v'lo yad avdai, not the hand of a Canaanite slave. Yadai, v'lo yad shlicha, not the hand of an agent. Yadai, v'lo yad ishtai, and not of a woman. Says the Gemara, why do I need 3 psukim? Kol ani lamali, tzricha. Because if it would say Yad, I would say it excludes an Eved Kanani that doesn't have a lot of mitzvahs. He doesn't have tefillin, he doesn't have a lot of mitzvahs. Av a shliach, the bar mitzvah, a shliach that has mitzvahs, and normally the rule is shlucha shaladim k'maisei, I might think he could be saimech for the principle. Emelismech. It's not the person himself, right? The shliach is not the person himself, and the eved is not a regular person. He doesn't have many of the mitzvahs. Aval ishtaik the kegufei dami. I'm sorry. When it says here. When it says v'lo yad ishta, it's not coming to tell me a woman. It's coming to tell me his wife. That one's wife cannot do smicha for him. So, if it would just say 2, I would say that an eved and a shliach can't do it. The lav kegufei dami, because an eved and shliach is not like the person himself. Aval ishtai the kegufei dami. There is a halachic concept of ishtai kegufei. Where do we use Ishtay Kegufay halachically? It's a regular occurrence every year. What did Rabbi say?
Neris.
Right, Hanukkah. Every in our house, I lit, all the boys lit, and all my daughters lit. The only person that didn't light one was my wife. I remember when it was Hanukkah, when Chani was a Kala, I said to Mirza Hashem, this is the last time you're lighting in your life. And then she's going to get married. She doesn't light anymore. That's Ishta Kegufay. Today we have, because of, I'm not blaming anybody, but because of feminist influence, women think it's nice that wives think it's nice that they light. But actually it's not a good thing. Because the reason why they don't light is because they're one with their husband. It's the same way that a husband does not light Shabbos candles. It's a very big mitzvah to light Shabbos candles. I'd love to light Shabbos candles. But my wife lights. And Ishta Kegufay. So I don't light. And it's the same thing with Hanukkah. The greatest of women stood by their husbands while their husband, I remember the Rebbetzin would stand by when Rav Moshe lit. Right? Now, it says in the Mishnah that smicha is shorei mitzvah. Smicha is a residual part of the mitzvah. Tan Rabbanan, v'samach v'nirtza. Right, that's how we end off the Haggadah. Hallel nirtza. That Hashem should accept our avodah. So it says v'samach v'nirtza, and that's a puzzling, because it makes it sound that if you do the smicha, it's going to be accepted. It says Gemara v'chi smicha mechaperes. There's a smicha afford atonement. V'alein kapar el bedam. Most people think that the main part of the sacrifice is the slaughter. But it's not. The main part of the sacrifice is the zrikas adam. Right? The ki adam hu v'nefesh yichaper. The blood atones. But certainly not the smicha. Shenemar ki adam hu b'nefesh yichaper. Elalaimer, it's coming to tell you Shem also the smicha shiorei mitzvah. If you treat smicha shabbily, as if it's only a remnant, and you didn't do it, you should know I'm not pleased with you. Ma'ala alav akasav ki'ilu lo'kiper. It's as if you didn't do a good atonement, but v'chiper. But it does afford atonement. But the Rebbeinu Shalom is letting you know that it's a shabby job if you leave out the smicha. It is v'nirtza. It is anyway affords atonement. But it's, and the Gemara says the same kind of style by tnufa, by waving. The Tanya gabe tnufa ki agavna. And it says this by the karbanos that need to be waved. Right? For example, the shlomim, we wave. It says there, the snufa lechaper, to wave to atone. Does tenufa bring the atonement? It doesn't. The kapara comes from the blood. Blood, banefesh yichaper, atones for the soul. If you treat tenufa as a residual, and you say, we'll skip it, it's as if you didn't receive atonement, even though begrudgingly I'll atone for you. In other words, but you should know that you did it in a half-baked way. It reminds me of what we say. I mentioned this in one of my speeches in the hotel. In Nusach Svard, it says something very very reassuring about davening. Ki kel shemea tfilas kol peh amcha Yisrael berachamim. That God listens to tfilas kol peh amcha Yisrael, all the mouths of the nation of Yisrael berachamim. Now that means that even if it's only the mouth, even if it's not from the head. So even if you were daydreaming, and it's only your mouth, but kikel shemeh tfilas kol b'amchi, that's the fact. But you know what the Baal say? You know what kind of a tefillah that is? That's tfilas kol feh. That tefillah is feh. That's what it is. It's feh. Feh. Feh in Yiddish means ich. That's what kind of a tefillah it is. Now, al rosh, you put your hands on the head. Tana Rabbanan yodai al rosh. You put your hand on the head, v'lo yodai al tzavar, not on the neck of the animal. Yodai al rosh, v'lo yodai al gabayim, not on the back of the animal. Yodai al rosh, v'lo yodai al chaza, not on the chest of the animal. So I'd have to exclude all three of these. Kol hani lamali tzricha dikas rachman echad. I would say the mutei tzaver to exclude just the neck, because that's not on the same plane as the head. The mutei tzaver, the loikai b'hadei roisha, it's not on the same level as the head. Aval gabay the kai b'hadei roisha, the back, which is on the same plane as the head, I might think yes. I might think that you could do smicha tzricha. Biyash min hani trei. Mishum Yisrael l'tnufa, because they are not waved. Aval chaza, but the chest which is waved, the Yisrael l'tnufa, emaloi. I might think you could do smicha on the chest, tzricha that you can't. Now, what about putting the hands on the side of the head? Ibayalu yadai alat stadin mahu. What about on the sides of the head? Tashma the Tanya Abba Bira, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov Omer, Yodei al Roshai v'lo Yodei al Tzdadim, not on the sides. By Rabbi Yirmiyah matlis mouth. What if he has, some people have sensory issues. He doesn't feel good touching an animal. So could he take a piece of a diaper and cloth diaper and put it between his hands and the animal? So by Rabbi Yirmiyah matlis mao shetachitz. Will a diaper be an interposition? So the Gemara says yes. Tajma u'bovat shelo yetei davar chaytzetz, that there's nothing interposing beino lebein hazevach, between him and the carbon. Ub'shtei hayadayim, and it's with both hands. Now, how do we know it's with both hands? Minani mili amrei shlakish dama krav v'samach Aaron es shtei yodav. Now, even though it's written yodai, but it's read yodav. So Aaron puts his two hands. Now, ksiv yodai, it's written yodai, but uksiv shtei, and it also says two. Zebana of, this teaches us that kol makom shenema yodai, wherever it says yodai, harikan shtayim, it means two, unless it says one. We have such a drasha that since it says al pi shnei al pi this is a different subject. Okay. Also Rabbi Lazar went and he said this teaching, but he didn't cite it in the name of Reish Lakish. Also Rabbi Lazar, Amalash Maitza B'Bei Midrasha, that how do we know that it's with two hands? Because it says Shtei Yodav, and it's written Yodai, to tell us that any place where it says Yodai, it's two, except if it says one. But he didn't give attribution to Reish Lakish. Perhaps he just forgot. Yes. Or maybe Rabbi Lazar independently, that's the way some learn. The Rabbi Elazar independently thought of this idea on his own. So he didn't attribute it to Reish Lakish. Shama Reish Lakish v'ikbid. Reish Lakish heard, and he minded. He should have said it in the name of Reish Lakish. Perhaps he took offense because if you could say it in the name of someone else, you could bring Gula Lailam. It says, maybe Gula Lailam. So why didn't you exercise that privilege? So in order to show Rabbi Elazar that he didn't fully grasp the situation, he's Shamarei Shlakish v'ikbid, Oisavlei Isol Kedaita Kol Heichad Dichsiv Yodai. That wherever it says Yodai Tarte Ninu, then Lamali Lemichtav Yodav Yodav. Why does it have to say in so many places Yodav? And he showed him 24 places where it says Yodav. Talking about Shlakish. He knew Shas, Actually, Esrim v'arba Yodav. For example, Yodav Tivienu, his hands will bring the carbon. Yodav Ravlai, Moshe Rabbeinu's hands fought for him. Sikel es Yodav, Yaakov, with intellect, moved his hands on the heads of Ephraim and Menashe. Ishtak, Rabbi Elazar was quiet. Labasa de Nach Daite, after Reish Lakish calmed down, Amalei, he said to Amalei, he said to Rabbi Elazar, my time aloi tamely, why don't you say that when it said this drasha of Yadai, we were only referring to Smicha. Yad of the Smicha Kamre, not all over the Torah. Says Rabbi Elazar, but by Smicha it also says Yadav in the plural. B'Smicha namiksiv vayismach es Yadav alav, that he put his hands to give Smicha upon him, vayitzaveyu, and he instructed him, talking about rabbinical Smicha. And Reish Lakish says no, only by a Smicha of an animal, not rabbinical Smicha. Smicha de behemer Kamre. And finally, in the place where they did the smicha, they shechted, and take it for the smicha shchita. So there's an obvious question. There's a redundancy over here. The redundancy is if take it for the smicha shchita, then obviously it's in the place where you do the smicha yeshecht, because otherwise it's not going to be immediately. My comma, so why the redundancy? Says why? Because you take it for the smicha shchita, you have to do right after the smicha the shchita. So obviously you have to do the smicha in the place where you do the shchita.
But they hold the head, not
what?
We shucked on the neck bit, but they put the hands on the head.
Correct.
So the hands are not on the place where you do shchita.
No, but makkah means in the place in the azara.
Oh.
In other words, like for example, Kachim is in the north,
Okay.
so
I missed that.
now, Rabbi Isai, I'm just wondering, I'm finding it tight over here in the shul, doing the daf at 8. Should we push it already for tomorrow night to 8:15? What does the Olam say?
Sure, I'd say 8:15. Yes.
Okay, I think so also. Daf Yomi tomorrow night already. Shelley, put it on. Daf Yomi tomorrow night already at 8:15. Yeah. That'll give Baruchian time to dock into Deerfield and have a good night, everyone. Yes, so we're going to do Sfira now. Shem Yichud Kodesh B'Reicha Shchintei B'Tchila Rechim El Yachad Yod V'Avchei B'Chud Hashem B'Shem Kol Yisrael Henei Muchen Mezum L'Kayim Mitzvahs Asay Shel Sfira Sa'omer K'may Shekasa B'Atayris V'Atam L'Chem B'Machas HaShabbos